Hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. This lecture we're going to look at CloudFormation. So it took us basically over an hour to go through and configure all that stuff manually. Now the great thing about CloudFormation is that you can write one template once, and provided it's written correctly, you can use that in any region and you can deploy it within minutes. And then any changes that you make to your templates, you can apply updates to. So CloudFormation saves you an awful lot of time. As soon as you get your first template up and running, after that you can push out entire massive environments within a few minutes. You can get CloudFormation templates for for SharePoint, for example. So you can have an entire SharePoint environment that has Active Directory controllers, has SQL servers, has multiple web servers, and you can push out a SharePoint environment within about 4 or 5 minutes in terms of provisioning time. So CloudFormation is extremely powerful. If you're going to work as a solutions architect, you're going to be using CloudFormation all the time. I would really recommend you go and do our deep dive course on CloudFormation if you want to learn CloudFormation and become a solutions architect. The course is I think it's about 10 or 12 hours long, but by the end of it you're going to be a CloudFormation guru, and honestly it's worth its weight in gold if you're looking for a job as a solutions architect in the real world. Okay, so enough out of me. Let's go over to the AWS console, and the first thing we're going to do is tear down our environment. Okay, so let's go ahead and tear down our environment. So we'll go into EC2, and the very first thing we want to do is just go over to our auto scaling groups, and we can click in here and we just go actions, and you have to delete them one at a time, unfortunately. So I'm going to go ahead and go actions, delete, yes, and then I'm going to go in and delete my content one as well. I'm going to unhighlight this and then click in here. There we go, and go actions. Do you want to delete? Go ahead and hit yes. So now I'm deleting it. If I go to my EC2 dashboard, I should see a whole bunch of instances about to be shut down. So go ahead and hit refresh. It can take a little bit of time to delete your auto scaling group, so we'll give it a few minutes. But if you go across to here, you'll see that it is going through and hitting delete. The other thing you want to do is, and a lot of people forget this, your elastic load balancers, they do cost you money, so go ahead and delete them as well. That's often a sneaky way of incurring a bill using free tier. So I'm going to go through and delete my elastic load balancers. You also may want to go in and delete your Amazon machine images. I'm actually going to keep mine because I need to keep this course up to date, and I like to keep those AMIs there, so in case I need to update the lectures, I want to keep a copy of them. And then go ahead over to RDS. I'm going to go in and delete our RDS database. So we'll go into DB instances, and in here I'm just going to go instance actions, and I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. It says create final snapshot. I am actually going to do that again because I want to keep the data in there. You guys don't have to. I just want to keep it just in case I need to recreate this lecture. Let's go ahead and hit delete. So that is going to do a snapshot and then delete the RDS instance. And finally, you can go through and delete your S3 buckets if you want. Again, I'm going to keep mine in there just because if I need to recreate this lecture, I will have those resources. So the next thing I want you to do is scroll down, and we're going to go to Management Tools. And under Management Tools, we've got CloudFormation. So let's go in and click in CloudFormation. So here we've got 3 different options. We've got Create a Stack, Design a Template, or Create a Template from your existing resources. Design a Template, if we click in here, you're going to see it basically builds it out in sort of like a Visio style diagram. I don't want to do that. I'm going to go back and hit yes. I'm going to leave. Let's go back to CloudFormation. I'm going to go in and create my own stack, and I'm going to do that using a sample template. And we have a whole bunch of ones here. Here we go, we've got a WordPress one. Why don't we go ahead and have a look at that? It's going to be in an S3 bucket, and we can actually go in and view and edit it in our template designer. It creates this really nice sort of Visio style, network style diagram. I'm just going to leave everything as default. I'm going to click on this little icon next to the tick, so the little cloud one, and it takes me back to my select template. I'm going to use the S3 URL that Amazon provide for this template. In fact, I'll just make sure I've got it all correct. So click on WordPress blog, go ahead and hit next. And the stack name, so what do we want to call this stack? Well, we'll call this My Prod WordPress site, something like that. In here we set our parameters. So these are user-driven inputs. So like, what's the size of our database for our RDS instance? Well, we're going to make that 5 gigs. What's our database class? Let's do a T2 micro. What's the WordPress? What's the database name going to be? I'm just going to make this a Cloud Guru. What's the database password? I'm going to use a Cloud Guru. Database username, a Cloud Guru. What's the EC2 instance type? Well, let's do a T2 micro. And then inside here, we've got the key name. So I'm going to use an existing key that I've got for Ireland, which is my Irish key. Do we want this to be multi-AZ? I'm just going to keep it simple and say no. The SSH locations, so where can we SSH into our EC2 instances? Well, let's just make this available everywhere. The subnets, we can actually click in here, similar to when we were doing our auto-scaling groups, and select all our different subnets. The VPC ID, let's just use our default VPC, and our web server capacity, let's just start with 1. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. In here we can specify tags for our resources. I'm just going to leave those as blank. Our IAM role, I'm just going to leave that as blank for now. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. I'm going to leave all the default values and go ahead and hit create. Now, if we go back to CloudFormation and go to our stacks, we should be able to refresh this screen and we can see this this stack being created. So I'm going to pause the video and let CloudFormation go ahead and provision this. But the great thing is it's not going to take an hour to do. It should only be a few minutes. So I'm going to pause the video now. Another cool thing you can do while you're waiting for this stack to create is you can click on the stack name and you can go in and have a look at all the different events. So you can see where there's create in progress, where you can see where there's create complete, etc., etc. So it is interesting to watch it. If you click on outputs right now, there's no outputs found, but there will be at the end of this process. So I'm just going to pause the video again. Okay, so let's refresh, and there we go. We've got create complete. So we can go in and see our outputs. Our output is just our website URL, so we can click on that, and hopefully it will load up our template WordPress site. Now, it's not actually doing anything, it's timing out. And to me, that straight away means there's going to be an issue with the security group. So if we go back over to the AWS Management Console, let's go over to EC2, and we'll go down to our security group, and let's have a look. So we've got my prod WordPress site, and this looks like it's going to be our security group. And look at the notes here. Enable HTTP access via port 80, locked down to the load balancer plus SSH access. And if we actually have a look at the rule here, you can see HTTP is only being allowed from this source. And for me, it's a security group ending in BEAB, which is my default security group. So I want to actually change this and just go in and edit it so that it's o.o.o.o/o, and that will give me access throughout the internet. So go ahead and hit save. Let's go back over here and just refresh the DNS name for my Elastic Load Balancer. And that still doesn't seem to be working, so let's troubleshoot this further. Let's go to our Elastic Load Balancer and check that it is actually in the correct security group. So I'm going to click in here and let's see what security group it is in. So if we just go down to security groups, it's in the default one. So we need to edit that, and we want to move it back into our the one that it created, which was this one. So let's move it across and hit save. And there we go. Now if we come back here and hit refresh again, there we go. We've got WordPress all up and running, and we're ready to go and install it. So we could go in and type in a Cloud Guru, etc. We've just spent an hour doing this. I'm not going to go back into WordPress. It's killing me, guys. I'm sorry. So let's go back and tear down this environment. So if we go back into CloudFormation, we can go all the way over here and click here, and then we can click on our stack, and we can go actions, delete stack, and go ahead and hit delete, and that is now going to delete all the resources that this stack has gone ahead and created. One last thing you might want to check on is if you just go back to Northern Virginia and have a look that your EC2 instances have all been terminated. So go down to EC2, just make sure, there we go, I've got no running instances, everything's been terminated. Make sure my load balancers have all been terminated as well. There we go. And then you might also just want to check in on your RDS instance. That can take a little bit of time, but it should have been terminated by now. And yes, it has, because I'm just getting the splash screen. So that is it. You can see how CloudFormation, is really, really powerful. How it can just save you loads and loads of time. This lecture has been under 10 minutes, and in the last 5 lectures combined have been, well over an hour. So CloudFormation saves you an enormous amount of time, and it basically allows you to turn your infrastructure into code, and then you can have version controls and all of this. And this is the future of cloud computing. The infrastructure architects are going to be less and less in demand moving forward, and cloud architects are the new, going to be in super demand. And if you want to be a cloud architect, you're going to need to know CloudFormation. So we do have a 10 or 12-hour course on it. I really, really do recommend that you go and do this course. But for the purposes of passing the exam, you just need to understand what CloudFormation is at a very high level. So that is it for this section of the course, guys. Give yourselves a big pat on the back. You've done really, really well. I hope you've learned a lot. And that you feel very, very confident going into the exam. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next section. Thank you.